music, of course. Joining us now in the studio, our good friend, the Commissioner of the Mississippi Public Service Commission for the South District, Dane Maxwell. Morning, Dane.
Hey, good morning. Thanks for letting me join you today. It's always good to be in the studio with you.
I'm glad you were able to make it in the studio. I'm traveling out of your district, shall we say, a little bit, and glad that worked out for you to come in today.
Yeah, we had some work to do in Jackson, and then we're going to move over to look at the damaged areas from the storms that came through. So it's busy next couple of days in the district, in the Southern District.
Yeah. Well, I know you're busy with this recent announcement we saw of the state's first wind turbine.
Man, how great is that?
It's awesome.
Yeah, and it's such a big facility and a lot of jobs coming in with that. And, you're talking about a solar farm. It's typically not something you'd see in Mississippi, right? Because we haven't had that before. But the fact is they figured out a way to capture that wind by elevating it slightly. And now we've got one of the largest ones. And here in Mississippi, that will... That'll the power about 70,000 homes, that wind farm. It's on 1,300 acres in Tunica. Had a great visit up there with the local folks. And you're talking about 100 jobs just got created.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a great thing.
And so is there a private sector company that is doing this?
Yeah, well, that's what I was going to say. The beauty is it's private funds that built this and not public funds.
Right.
And so that's another exciting thing about this. When people that's outside of Mississippi see what we have to offer here in Mississippi, it's great to see them come in and partner with us and get something like this done.
And so you wouldn't think that Mississippi would be a candidate for wind generation, wind energy. What gives? Is it just advances in technology?
Advances in technology. That's why we have to keep investing in renewable energy. Because I don't think you'll ever see it in my lifetime that it'll replace, combustible engines and all that. Let's be real. We're going to have oil and gas and those kind of things going on that we've always had. But we have to start investing in that technology. And this is just one great example as to why we need to do that. Because you couldn't build a wind farm here 5 years ago.
That's right.
And then since then, they've worked on it and found out where the wind actually will work, and they just elevated it up. Yeah.
Well, I think there's really errors made on both sides of this clean energy argument. One, it's preposterous to think that you could just immediately transition away from traditional fossil fuels and traditional energy sources and just flip a switch and migrate over to renewable sources. That's not true. On the other hand, it's also not true that there aren't tremendous advances being made in technology, in innovation with respect to renewable energy, and that is not going to be a huge part of our energy production. Of course it is, and it makes sense to do so. And so not only are we seeing innovation and technology improve, we're seeing that drive the cost of it down, which is another big knock on it as well. And the same is true with electric vehicles. A lot of people say, well, you still got to draw electricity produced by fossil fuels to power those vehicles. And I think that loses sight of the fact that there's so much going on. And I know this is out of your zone, but it is interconnected to energy.
Sure.
So much going on with respect to battery technology and ways to charge those batteries as well. These are technical problems that smart humans solve. It just takes a little time. So it seems to me like a strategy where they coexist and we figure out where it makes sense to have fossil and where it makes sense to have renewable is the best strategy, but it just seems like from the left, no, you got to cut it out, and by this day we got to do that.
Yeah.
And we don't have really a replacement.
Right, so. That's right. Yeah, and one of the things that we're doing on battery technology is we signed off earlier or late last year on two solar farms, $80 million solar farms, and they're all using batteries, and that's how they store a lot of that energy.
Yeah.
And, you're right. The flipping a switch or putting a date on it is just preposterous to think that this is all going to turn around. The reality is I don't think in my lifetime, I'm 57 years old, that I'll ever see it. But at some point, then we'll do it. If you want clean energy, the best thing to do is like is like many people have told us, is invest in nuclear.
Yeah.
That's the thing, and it scares people. But
why doesn't that get the attention it should?
It's people tell me all the time, well, we can't look at 3 Mile Island. Well, 3 Mile Island had safety mechanisms that were put in place that stopped everything from us. Well, look at Chernobyl. Really? I mean, you can't compare their safety standards to ours.
Right.
But nowadays, with technology on nuclear, you can put in small reactors. A small reactor will generate the city of Jackson. You could generate it right out of a small condensed reactor right now and put one outside of Jackson, and it would power the whole city.
And when we're talking small, how big? I mean, I know I've read about this. Tell our listeners how big. What is the size of a small reactor?
Probably maybe 40 by 80.
Tiny.
like a small shop.
Yeah.
I tell you too. People always say, "Well, you're talking about the waste. The waste is a problem." Look, I didn't know this until I got involved in the Public Service Commission years ago, but you could take, since the United States has been involved in nuclear, you could take a cylinder of nuclear waste and stack it end to end, and it wouldn't cover a 100-yard football field. And so it doesn't really generate a lot of that, but they're worried about storing it. And I hope technology, from what I hear, is where we can launch that into the sun at some point as we move forward. Yeah. But I just think you want to talk about clean clean energy. Your nuclear is the way to go. Yeah,
no question. And I don't know. There seems to be such a pushback from, I guess, a lot of different factions on a lot of different directions, and that's causing problems. But the president, and certainly in Washington, and the Democrats being in charge, I mean, they've made climate change a central theme into every policy decision, the operations of every agency. Is it going too far?
Oh, absolutely. Look, I was, I worked for President Trump and from 2015 to the last election. But the reality is I think it's all politicized, and they went in and flipped the switch on a lot of stuff that he's done. They have gone canceling Keystone Pipeline. Took away thousands and thousands of jobs. Made no sense. Same way by cutting all of the protection and the regulations that we had on the border walls, and continuing to build that and allowing those people to come in the right way. It's just, let's do everything opposite of Trump. And it infuriates me, and I know it does millions of Mississippians and folks around this country, but this is why it's so important to vote. Look at the local municipality elections, Look at Brookhaven. Brookhaven was red, and now it's almost blue again. So we got to go refigure and get out and vote what our thoughts are here in Mississippi. So we got to do our part.
Yeah, absolutely. So we got the president on the other side of the world that's dealing with all the G7 leaders, and as you know, climate change right at the center of that. Is there anything you expect coming out of Washington these days that you're grappling with, Commissioner, with respect to energy production here in Mississippi? I mean, it's constantly releasing more regulations and more controls and stuff, but
it's going to hurt us any way we go. The stuff that's coming out of there is like everything. It's just insane, and we're going to have to put up with it. And when we get our opportunities, like in these House races in 2022, got to get out there and vote and not sit at home. But yeah, I think we're going to be strangled with some undue regulations, burdened us down with those crazy things, and we're going to continue to lose jobs until we straighten that back out again. But until then, we just got to keep our head above the water and try to keep on trucking.
We got a couple of minutes left here, but I wanted to get your thoughts on our preparedness and readiness for cyber attacks on our various energy producers in Mississippi here.
Well, our state auditor, Shad White, a great guy, and I think he's a brilliant guy. I think he pretty much said it when he took office and did his first assessment is we are way behind on cybersecurity for Mississippi.
Yeah, it concerns me, and it should concern every Mississippian and every American. This ain't going to stop. As you know, I was in that industry. I've been talking about this for 10 years.
That's right.
Number one threat facing the country, and I still think that. Commissioner, thanks so much for coming by today. Really appreciate it. Good luck on your work and your travels, and thanks for your service to the Southern District of Mississippi.
Well, thank you for having me.
You got it. Commissioner Dane Maxwell with the Mississippi Public Service Commission has been our guest. We'll come right back. We got some